Have you ever felt crushed by life? Have you ever felt like God is silent, right when you need Him the most? Imagine losing your children, your health, and all your material possessions, and still refusing to give up your faith. This is the story of Job. It's not just about suffering, it's about resisting and trusting when everything and everyone screams at you to stop and curse your God. Today, you will dive into a journey that may change the way you see pain, faith, and life itself. Job lived in the land of Uz. He was a blameless and upright man, one who feared God and avoided evil. He had a large family, 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed immense wealth, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and many servants. He was the richest man in all the East, but his greatest treasure was spiritual. Every day Job prayed for his children and offered sacrifices just in case they had sinned. Job did not trust appearances. Even if his children seemed fine, he went further. He thought, perhaps in their hearts they have sinned. And so he interceded. This was his routine, a family man, a man of God. And while he lived righteously on earth, something was happening in heaven. The scene changes completely. The invisible part of the story begins, the part that would bring immense pain to Job. If this content is already blessing you, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This way, you help us reach even more people who need messages that touch, teach, and strengthen. And now, let's continue, because what happened to Job is such an intense story that it feels like a movie script, but written by God Himself. In heaven, the sons of God presented themselves before the Lord, and Satan was among them. God asked, "Where have you come from?" And he replied, "From roaming the earth and walking around on it." Then the Lord spoke of Job with pride. "Have you considered my servant Job? A blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil." And Satan questioned, "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Here, the spiritual conflict begins. According to Satan, no one serves God out of love. Job would only be faithful because everything was going well for him. He argued, "Touch what he has, take away his blessings, and he will curse you to your face." God allowed it, with one condition. Satan could not touch Job's life. Thus, without knowing, Job became the center of one of the greatest tests of faith in the entire Bible. In a single day, everything fell apart. 4 messengers appeared. One said, "The Sabaeans attacked. They stole the oxen and donkeys. They killed the servants." Another, "Fire from God fell from the sky, burned the sheep and the servants." A third, "The Chaldeans stole the camels and killed more servants." And the last messenger brought the worst news of all. His sons and daughters were at a feast. A strong wind came from the desert and collapsed the house. All died. Job then got up, tore his clothes, shaved his head, and fell to the ground, and declared, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Even in mourning, Job did not sin. But the story does not end there. Satan returned to God's presence. God again praised Job, and Satan insisted, "Touch his skin, and he will curse you." God allowed it. Job was then afflicted with tumors and painful sores from head to toe. He sat among the ashes and scraped his wounds with pieces of pottery. His wife, overcome with grief, said, "Curse God and die." But Job replied, "You speak like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Job did not understand what was happening, but still chose to trust. His friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, arrived. They barely recognized him. They sat with him for 7 days in silence. When Job finally spoke, it was to curse the day of his birth. He wished he had never been born. He asked why those who suffer must live. He cried out for meaning. and then his friends began to speak. Eliphaz suggested that Job was suffering because he had sinned. Bildad insinuated that even his children had died because of their wickedness. Zophar was harsher. He said Job deserved worse. But Job did not accept this. He defended himself, said his conscience was clear. He called his friends useless physicians and demanded to speak with God. He said, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." Job's faith was deep and at the same time full of pain, questions and conflicts. He wanted a mediator, someone to intercede for him before God. And in the midst of pain, Job declared, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that at the end he will stand on the earth." Even without answers, he maintained hope. Even without explanation, he continued trusting. Job believed that his integrity would be defended before God's throne. He did not understand the Lord's ways, but he did not deny his faith. Job's pain was not only physical. He was covered in sores, but his soul also bled. Job felt that God had fallen silent. He cried out, but heard no answer. His friends accused him. His wife abandoned him emotionally. The community avoided him. Even children mocked him. Job became a pariah. There was no comfort, only silence, shame, and an anguished heart that kept praying. Job questioned God's mysteries. Why does the Almighty allow the wicked to prosper and the righteous to suffer? He did not want simplistic explanations. He wanted truth, justice, the presence of God. Oh, if I only knew where to find him, I would go to his court. But even without seeing God's face, he said, "When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." The theology of his friends was too simple for such deep suffering. They said, "God punishes the wicked and rewards the righteous." But Job was righteous and suffered like few others. Yet God does not fit into formulas. He is sovereign. Job, even without understanding, clung to this truth. God is above all. Even if he is silent, he remains in control. Then after long chapters of lament, dialogue, and protest, God finally answered. From within a whirlwind, God spoke to Job. But he did not answer questions. God asked questions. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Who shut up the sea behind doors? Have you commanded the morning to appear? God led Job to contemplate creation. God spoke of the behemoth, the leviathan, the constellations, the birth of animals, the secrets of the depths. He did not explain the reason for suffering, but revealed who he is. And that revelation changed everything. Job understood that his pain was in the hands of a God who sees beyond. He fell silent and said, "I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know." And he continued, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." The pain did not end, but the perspective changed. God's silence was broken. Job's soul was visited. The faith that had been theoretical was now intimate. He repented, not for sinning, but for having limited God in his pain. God rebuked Job's friends, saying they had not spoken correctly about him, and he ordered them to bring sacrifices. Job had to intercede for them, and when Job prayed for his friends, God changed Job's fortune. The turning point began in prayer. It began in forgiveness. It began in mercy. Job, even wounded, prayed for those who had hurt him. Then everything was restored in double. Job received again 7 sons and 3 daughters. The daughters were described as the most beautiful in the land, and they received an inheritance. He lived another 140 years, saw 4 generations, and died in peace. But Job's story does not end with answers. The Bible never says he knew about the conversation between God and Satan. Perhaps this is the greatest lesson. True faith does not depend on explanations. It depends on trust. Job teaches us that we can worship God even when everything seems lost, even in silence, because God is still present. If this story touched you, built you up, or helped you see pain with new eyes, like this video now. This helps more people find this message. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Comment below, what part of Job's story impacted you the most? Share it with someone going through a difficult day, because faith is also shared. And stories like Job's remind us, even in suffering there is beauty, even in pain there is purpose, and even in silence, God still speaks. Thank you very much for watching until here. May the God who sustained Job also sustain you. And remember, you are never alone. See you in the next video.